Good afternoon. The church clock has just struck 1, so welcome to this, the fourth in our series of Monday lunchtime organ music. It occurred to me that although this is the fourth concert, I hadn't yet played any Bach. We had Bach through the eyes of Virgil Fox in the first recital, but no unadulterated Bach, as it were. So we'll put that right at the beginning of the program today with the great Prelude and Fugue in C minor. This is, Bach wrote lots and lots of preludes and fugues, most famously the 48 preludes and fugues for the harpsichord, showing equal temperament, but also many for the organ. It's uncertain how many of those were intended to be paired pieces, or whether they were simply separate pieces, and indeed this piece is often considered that the fugue was probably written considerably earlier than the prelude, and they were put together at a later stage. But it's a magnificent piece, a very grand piece. It's a piece that has inspired many other composers. Vaughan Williams' own Prelude and Fugue in C minor is heavily based upon this work of Bach. It begins very grandly, very grand chords, and then gives way into quaver movement and then triplet quaver movement, and so it gradually feels as if it's building momentum as it goes through. And then the fugue, you hear the subject in the tenor register to start with, and then it builds up as it goes through. So Bach's Prelude and Fugue in C minor. Bach's great Prelude and Fugue in C minor. Moving to England now, the beginning of the 20th century, the great English composer Sir Edward Elgar. He had a knack of writing a great tune, did Sir Edward, and this is one of them, the Chanson de Matin. Originally, I think, written for violin and piano, but such a popular tune, it became arranged in all kinds of guises, piano solo and cello and any other instrument really, and sold many, many, many copies. This is an arrangement by Herbert Brewer, the organist of Gloucester Cathedral, one-time organist of Gloucester Cathedral, and himself a very influential musician, with Vaughan Williams, I think, being particularly, Vaughan Williams and Herbert Howells being particularly under his sway. But this is a wonderful arrangement showing off some of the quieter stops of the organ to start with, but then it does build up towards the end as well. So, Chanson de Matin by Sir Edward Elgar. Moving back about 500 years now to Sweelinck, The great Dutch organist at the Ouderkerk in Amsterdam, I believe it was. But he died in 1521, so an anniversary for him this year. This is perhaps one of his most famous sets of variations. Mein junges Leben hat ein Ende, my young life is at an end. Seemingly gloomy, but it's quite a jolly tune, in fact. He wrote a number of sets of variations, and the secular tunes are so much more interesting than the religious ones, it has to be said. And so this kind of folk tune, I'll play the tune through in single notes at the beginning so you get to hear the tune, and then there are, how many variations? 6 variations on it. And the first one I'm playing on a 4-foot flute on its own. It's quite an unusual sound. Sounds a bit like a consort of recorders, I suppose. Normally the fundamental tone is an 8-foot for the organ, to the equivalent of what you get if you played on a piano. So it's as if I was playing it an octave higher on a piano. And so you get this kind of very delicate consort of recorders type sound in the first variation, and then coming back to that at the very end as well, and then it builds up in the middle. music of Svelink, who died 500 years ago this year. As always, if you feel so moved to donate to the work of the Priory, that you can do so at the website bridlingtonpriory.co.uk, and many thanks to those that have done so in the previous few weeks. Your generosity is very much appreciated. You can hear there are a few sour notes on the organ at the moment, so it's in need of a bit of TLC, so we'll hopefully get the tuner here in the next few weeks. And of course all of that costs money, and so any support you're able to give us in these difficult times would be very, very much appreciated. Thank you for that. Returning to England for the next piece, the rather extraordinarily named Reginald Goth Custard. There were two Goth Custards, Reginald and his elder brother Henry. Henry was organist of Liverpool Cathedral, the first organist of Liverpool at the time when the great Willis organ was being built. And Reginald was based in London, organist at St Margaret's, Westminster, and St Michael's, Chester Square, I believe. No, I might be wrong on Chester Square, but certainly St Margaret's, Westminster. But he was always more at home in the town hall type tradition. And for this next piece, I think you have to imagine the Alexandra Palace or Crystal Palace or one of the great town halls with the organs and people wandering around, looking at things or just taking the air on a Sunday afternoon, and the organ playing in the background, a bit like when we walk into shops these days, assailed by music from hidden speakers and things. The organ was doing that long ago, long before technology was there to do it in shops and goodness knows what else. So, and this is a charming little piece, Chelsea Fair. I seem to remember reading something about it being for Milliners Fair, written for that, but I may have been dreaming that. I've no idea. I haven't looked anything up this time. But anyway, it's this kind of town hall piece, and it's a fun piece. one I thought I'd better get in before Lent begins on Wednesday this week. There will be a recital again next Monday, but I get a week off, all being well. Sam Austin is Director of Music of Bridlington School, and Sam was all ready to take up a position as assistant organist here last Easter, but things obviously didn't work out quite that way, and Sam is still waiting to take up a position as assistant organist here at some point when we begin to return. But he is going to record a recital. It won't be a live recital, but he'll be back at school by next Monday. But he is going to play a recorded recital, which will be broadcast next Monday at 1 o'clock. So do tune in again for that. I didn't commit to any length of this series when we started, but on organrecitals.com, I've put things down for the end of March. The first Monday in April is Easter Monday, so I think I might extend it to that and do an Easter-type program for that. And then I'll see how much inspiration I've still got at that point. But thank you very much for your support over these past few weeks and for the nice comments that you're sending. We go back to France for the final piece in today's program, the finale to Vienne's first great organ symphony. Louis Vienne was blind, almost completely blind from birth, but didn't stop him playing. He was organist of Notre Dame and a very active composer as well. The organ at Notre Dame was in a pretty poor state during Vienne's tenure, and he did extensive tours of the United States and this country indeed to raise money for the rebuilding of the organ at Notre Dame. And the organ, the French organ and the English organ to a large extent had become what we often described as a symphonic organ. During the 19th century and the 20th century, the organs have got bigger and bigger and taking on different orchestral colours, strings and reeds and flutes and that kind of thing. And also the playing aids had got greater pistons to enable you to change registrations quickly. And so organ music became much more akin to symphonic music. And by the time you get to Vienne and Widor in early 20th century France, they are being referred to not as organ sonatas, but as organ symphonies. And in proportion and design, that is indeed largely what they are. Vienne wrote 6 such symphonies. Personally, I prefer Vienne in miniature. I think the symphonies, I can't cope with them quite as in all, but that's just my personal preference. Many people are very devoted to them. But there are some wonderful movements from them, and probably the most famous of all, is this final movement from the first symphony. You hear the tune in the pedals at the beginning. It's being compared to the Marseillaise by some people. It's such a well-known tune, and it's almost a second national anthem, I suppose, of France, this piece has become. But anyway, it's a wonderful piece showing off the organ, and so I hope you enjoy it, and thank you very much for listening.